Our dear viewers, as we have promised earlier, we are going to talk today about the governorate of Luxor. Luxor was chosen by the United Nations as the capital of world tourism. Why Luxor was chosen to be the world capital of tourism and to shed light about the history of that beautiful governorate and the most beautiful sightseeing there, we are very much delighted to have our dear guest in the studio, Mr. Yasser Kamel. He is a tour guide and Egyptologist. Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Yasser.
A very good morning to you, sir. And first, congratulations, as I know that all who are interested in Luxor, and I am included, are going to be that happy with the choice of Luxor to be the capital of world tourism for the coming year, for 2017.
I do agree completely, and Luxor deserves to be like that. Luxor has actually more than 1/3 of monuments of mankind. No tourist can handle and can see Luxor even in a week.
Yeah.
I mean, for example, the most attractive, the most famous highlight is the Karnak Temple.
Yeah.
The Karnak Temple, which covers 100 acres, took the Egyptians 10 centuries to build. Would take the tourist like 4 or 5 days
Yeah.
in order to get aware of the value and realize the size, comprehend the history. So maybe in the future, sites like this should be provided with a ticket of more than a day to cover. There are tombs and temples that are not even offered to the tourists and not included by sightseeing yet.
Why?
Maybe because we could not attract the right number of tourists. Most of them, they cruise between Luxor and Aswan on an hour cruise.
No.
And they spend in Luxor a couple of nights and maybe a couple of nights in Aswan, but they don't have time to explore the rest of Luxor. Maybe in the future we should address the Egyptology societies to create or help us to get the informative or the tourists who would just seek more history and be interested to see details.
Yeah.
I mean, like years ago, we used to be allowed to walk over the mountains, which borders Valley of the Kings, exactly, Valley of the Queens and Del Medina, and that walk take a couple of hours. And we used to have the tourists that would just like to enjoy details. I mean, read, take notes, ask good questions.
Yep.
So the sites should be added to Luxor. I know Luxor is looked after, I'd like to say this, in comparison to a lot of, or maybe Cairo sightseeing. I mean, Luxor sites like Valley of the Kings, Valley of the Queens are tight, clean, organized. There's no hassle from vendors.
Yeah.
I think the city deserves what was given to Luxor last year, and deserves to be the capital of the tourism, worldwide capital. And however, it's a small city. I mean, Luxor size half the Cairo city, probably like 100 square miles, and it has 500,000 Egyptians only. And a lot of people work in travel and tourism. And it's getting better now, gradually, the traffic of travelers and tourists return to the normal
We are going to return to modern Luxor, but let's have a quick look on old Luxor or historic Luxor for a while. And as far as I know, of course, that Thebes was the capital of Egypt for, it's not decades, for centuries. Why Luxor, or why Thebes was chosen to be the capital of Egypt, of old Egypt, to be accurate for such periods of time?
Actually, maybe fate made Luxor to entitle that position, because Luxor had, the royal family could resist and defeat the Hyksos, who were invaded by those tribes who came with horses and advanced chariots, occupied Egypt for 2 centuries almost. And we could not defeat them without the help of Luxor people. So those tough royal family, as Ahmos, Kames before, Second and Ra, Yahotep, all these royal family members helped us to defeat them. So it was logic to have the dynasty to choose their native city. But Luxor had been used earlier, or maybe it was a powerful state, much earlier time. It was a state, not a city. And it was maybe famous to have the cult of Ammon, the god of Luxor, back to 1700 BC and earlier. And we think the Karnak was already there by that time. Then once the royal family ruled and they successfully defeated and expelled the Hyksos, it made sense to choose their capital city to become the most vital city and to rule the whole Egypt from Luxor. And in the reign, or maybe during the reign of Amenhotep III, father of Akhenaten, he was the first king to think to use Luxor West Bank and build a palace there. I mean, the Egyptian royal family were convinced that a wooden house, a wooden palace could be great. could be enough, because maybe they would need it for a couple of centuries. But Akhenaten father, Amenhotep III, maybe had enjoyed his life in a way that he thought he would have a proper stone palace.
Yeah.
With gardens, with bedrooms, with, I mean, a very advanced palace. Him and Queen Tai, his wife, he was actually from Asia, not from Africa, and maybe that was their first time. We think Tutankhamun. The area is still found and not seen by tourists at all. It's called the Malqata, and it's a palace, goes back to 1400 BC.
And is it because of all the palaces we are talking about? Palace means in Arabic qasr, and one of the plurals is aqsar, so it turned to be al-Aqsar, referring to all these palaces, or
Yes.
the name has another origin?
The Arab name for Luxor
Yeah.
was inspired from the vision the Arabs had about those temples. The temples
Okay.
seemed to be palaces. Or maybe the Arab culture, before getting Egypt introduced to them, they were never been aware of such fancy temple could be made for a god. I mean, they could not believe the Karnak.
Yep.
That giant area is made for one god religion, not for the pharaoh. Because the pharaoh is greedy, to have all wealth and
Yep.
enjoys life. So they looked at those temples and called them palaces. So the word Al-Aqsa
Al-Aqsa.
invented. But earlier, Luxor had much more logic names. I mean, Wasit is one of the names, which means the city of the scepter. The scepter is the holy or the divine, elegant crook-like or staff-like, which the pharaoh should have in his hand, which represents the authority in
Yeah.
the government. And Luxor, maybe its name, which the Greeks kept for us, Thebes, came from Ta Ibat, which means the land of the holy shrine, or the land of the shrine, which became Tiba in Arabic,
Yep.
and Thebes in Greek.
Yeah.
And the Greeks had created their own myth about Egyptian Luxor, and the link between one of their heroes called Oedipus.
And after all what you're saying, is it weird or is it strange to choose Luxor to be the capital of
Not
the
at all. It's
world
just the
tourism for the
least we
coming
do for
years?
it.
Yeah.
The least.
But why now? Why this choice was taken at this particular timing, Mr. Yasser?
Well, it's in our side. I mean, in our interest
course,
to
of
choose
course.
this, and maybe this would vitalize travel
But
business.
better late than never?
Exactly, better late than never.
Yeah.
I mean, we should have been rewarded. Luxor rewarded that long time ago.
But how, as well, we should use that to promote our Luxor?
Well, actually, Luxor, maybe like, I would say we need to do more advertise about Egypt. Egypt is self-advertised without any efforts at all. I mean, any single human on earth would know about Egypt because the schools would teach them that and everything else. If we would like to get the tourist numbers to grow to millions and millions, we should do more efforts like this.
Like what? Because unfortunately, as you have been mentioning, that I believe that we'll go for a short break, and after that we'll be right back to continue our interview with Mr. Yasser. Welcome back. We continue our interview with Mr. Yasser Kamel, Egyptologist and tour guide. Mr. Yasser, before we went to the break, we were talking about Luxor and how we should promote Luxor with about 1/3 of the
Monuments of world
and
heritage
artifacts there.
Yeah.
So how can we promote
As I said,
Luxor?
Luxor is a self-advertised, and actually Luxor attracts many tourists by itself without any efforts from anyone. But actually, I think we should like publish and write down a number of booklets and give it for free to tourists at airports and arrivals, any terminals, make them aware of the sightseeing and maybe encourage them to see more of it. And maybe Egypt office outside abroad should do the same thing. Like I said, this could be like, but I think sightseeing there is clean, tight, and maybe we need more charts on every site. We need more information boards about Luxor, about history of Luxor.
And people there are amazing.
Yeah, they're just used to see tourists and aware of their value of tourism. They don't need really that much of guidance about how to treat tourists. And like I said, I was there a few days ago, and it was the travel business is back gradually to be better than it was last year. I'd like to say also Luxor, about history of Luxor, that one of the famous titles or names, the city of the 100 gates. One of the most impressive thing about Luxor that used to have 100 gates, and those gates seem to have avenues of sphinxes, such as the one the Karnak and Luxor are connected with. Between Luxor and the Karnak, there is a 3 kilometers avenue, 3 kilometers long avenue. And UNESCO, before the revolution, they were busy of clearing it and restoring it for us under Egyptian organization, antiquities organization supervision. And things was interrupted by the revolution.
Yeah.
And if they return that avenue to function, that 3 kilometers long avenue, I am confident that tourists will be curious.
Nile cruises between Aswan and Luxor, and I'm sure that the mid-year vacation, the mid-year vacation is going to have a lot of Egyptians flooding to Luxor, inshallah. And as we were speaking with our dear correspondent, dear colleague Dina Houida from Luxor, in this very important conference being held there, Prime Minister Engineer Sharif Ismail just arrived in this conference, and he is already there to promote for Luxor and to celebrate with the people there the choice of Luxor as the capital of the world tourism for the coming year, for the year 2017.
الأمثل لمواردها البشرية والطبيعية.